Turning now back to Washington, which, as I was saying a moment ago, Chris Murphy said the whole Gaza thing is just a distraction for what we're going to talk about in the next couple of blocks.
We can do both at the same time.
We can walk and we can chew gum. So here is President Donald Trump being asked whether Elon Musk is a total rogue agent or not, as he's going about this doggy revolution.
And Elon Musk, how often are you talking to him? And have there been ideas that he's brought to you that you've said, oh no, wait a minute, this is going a little too far?
Well, many ideas, but look, he's done a great job. Look at all the fraud that he's found in this U.S. AID. It's a disaster what the people, radical left lunatics, they have things that nobody would have even believed. The whole thing with $100 million spent on you know what, with money going to all sorts of groups that shouldn't deserve to get any money, with the money. I'd like to see what the kickbacks are. How much money has been kicked back? Who would spend that kind of money to some of the things that you read about and I read about and I see every night on the news and every morning when I read the papers? Who would spend money for that? I would say this, the people that got all that money, are they kicking it back to the people that gave it from government? No, that's, to me, very, very corrupt.
Some of these DOGE engineers that Elon Musk has helping him are as young as 19 years old.
That's good. They're very smart, though, Peter. They're like you. They're very smart people.
Thank you. Have you met any of these guys?
No, I haven't seen them. They work actually out of the White House. They're smart people. Unlike what they do in the control towers, where we need smart people, we should use some of them in the control towers where we were putting people that were actually intellectually deficient.
Democrats, of course, are reacting quite angrily to this. Let's roll some of them.
So today, Leader Jeffries and I are joining together to push legislation to prevent unlawful meddling in the Treasury Department's payment systems and protect Americans across the country. Our bill aims to do a few simple things. One, to deny access to special government employees that don't have to disclose their conflicts of interest or any other ethic agreements. Two, to deny access to anyone with conflicts of interest or lack of appropriate clearance. And three, include personal tax information into existing privacy protections. We call our legislation Stop the Steal.
They are raiding the government, attempting to steal taxpayer money.
We don't pledge allegiance to the billionaires. We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk. We don't pledge allegiance to the creepy 22-year-olds working for Elon Musk. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
God damn it, shut down the Senate! We are at war! Anytime a person can pay $250 million into a campaign and they be given full access to the Department of Treasury of the United States of America, we are at war! Thank you. We will see you in the courts, in Congress, in the streets. Elon Musk is a Nazi Nepo baby.
The thing that has Democrats most alarmed is what's going on at the Treasury Department. And we can put up this next element. Wired has been doing some really good reporting on who is actually involved in this DOGE committee. It's a group of kids that range in age from 19 to 25. If we can get Nathan Tankus on the line, we're going to talk to him.
Unfortunately, he just had to cancel. He's got a problem with his internet connection. So.
All right, no Nathan Tankus. They're hacking him.
Yeah, he's been working triple overtime basically in the last several days.
Yes. So Nathan Tankus, and we could send people over to his newsletter, which is called Notes on the Crisis, or crisisnotes.com. What he has been reporting based on Treasury sources, and which the Treasury so far has been denying, is that the DOGE team has what's called, quote, read and write access inside the bowels of the Treasury Department. So very quickly, Elon Musk's team went directly for the pipes, said, okay, who is pressing the buttons? Who's cutting the checks? Like who's after after everything gets, so Congress approves the spending, directs it. The agencies then confirm that this is how Congress intended to direct it, and then they tell somebody to send the checks. Musk is like, how is that? Where's the system that is happening? They went to this system, and the bureaucrat who is in charge of that, David Lettick, is that his name? He'd been a Treasury official since 1989, and he said, you cannot have direct access to this system. They insisted, and he resigned in protest, which really sent a shock through the Treasury Department, because I spoke with a former very senior Treasury official yesterday who worked directly with this guy, and he said he's the most like small c conservative bureaucrat, the absolute like definition of a civil servant. Could be frustrating at times because he's going to tell you chapter and verse what the statute is that you need to comply with for him to do the thing that you're asking him to do. You can imagine Elon Musk does not want to hear anything about statutes and laws.
No.
He just wants access. This is the guy whose job it has been over the last decade to do what are called the extraordinary measures when we pierce the debt limit, which we already have. Like it was in January, we went through the debt limit. We're now in the period of what's called extraordinary measures, which means there isn't enough money in the Treasury to basically pay everything. So and anybody who lives on the margins knows exactly how this works. You move things around. You got this money coming in here. What's the latest I can pay this bill? What are the late fees on this one? So I can move this. So you're just trying to keep your head above water. And so right now, they call it extraordinary measures. The Treasury's just trying to keep its head above water and make sure that the must-pay bills get paid. And the must-pay bills are the Treasury bonds and Treasury-like instruments, because those are the collateral for the entire global financial system. So if you are due cash for your Treasury note and it doesn't come, then now your counterparty is screwed. That counterparty was counting on this thing that has never broken in the system. So this guy, as we've gone through debt ceiling crises under Obama and under Trump, and now a new one, and then Biden, and then a new one under Trump, this guy has been the one that's made sure that all the payments have kept flowing. And people say he's like a magician. Like his ability to do this is, it leaves people utterly amazed. He's the one that has always briefed Treasury and also briefed Congress about how this is going. And everyone has always said, like, God does just an absolutely incredible job of it. The X date they're estimating is about 6 months from now. Like, we can move money around until then. In April, obviously, when you guys all send your checks in to the IRS, we're going to see a big plus up in the bank accounts. And so and then June, there's more money that comes in with the extensions and stuff like that, and corporate taxes. And so they think that maybe we've got till July-ish, but we're not sure. That's when it's run meticulously. So now this guy's gone. And let's hope that his deputies and whoever's left know how to move this around.
That's whoever's left.
Whoever's left.
Yeah.
That's kind of an aside. The other point that this senior official made to me is that, and it's one that you have probably already figured out. The code and the hardware and the software for these pipes that are the most important pipes in the global financial system are many decades old. Congress just has not appropriated money to redesign the pipes using modern technology. So my late great aunt, Mimi, she started coding in the 50s and 60s, and was doing some of it for the BEA and for the government. Like the code that she was touching in the 60s is still there today, like 60 years later.
It's incredible.
And so these 19-year-olds who have probably, they were taught about this stuff, they don't have I guess it's COBOL. They don't, and I'm sure they're brilliant. Like these
sure
kids.
They are.
Like
Yeah.
one of them was the one who won the contest, being able to figure out Julius Caesar's father-in-law's like Roman texts that were burned.
With an algorithm, right?
Like he figured out
he used
using
AI.
AI to like read some of these things. Like, you know, get some of the smartest people on the planet, I'm sure. Being that smart doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. So according to Tankus and others, these kids now have the ability to push new code into the system here, which is utterly alarming to everybody who's familiar with the system. Because if you do it wrong, and not even necessarily wrong, like you could do it right, but like the system is such that it is, that it can't handle this code that you've just pushed in there, and it breaks it. Like you don't know how it breaks it, where it breaks it, how to fix it. And then now you don't know who didn't get paid. Now, in your effort to clean up fraud, waste, and abuse, you might end up costing the government so much extra money, getting sued, and then also trying to figure out which payments didn't go out, and then being liable for all of the downstream consequences for the payments that didn't go out. And there's also reporting that some of what the coders are trying to put in reduces visibility of what Musk's doggy team is doing here. So, in other words, this is, they're trying to pick a fight around the Impoundment Control Act. Like they've been very clear about that. Impoundment Control Act was brought in the 1970s by Congress to try to put a check on Richard Nixon, who was claiming that he, as the executive, had the power to just stop a payment. Congress says, we're going to fund this bridge building project over here. He signs that into law, and then he turns around and says, actually, we're not going to do that. And Congress is like, no, that's clearly not constitutional. You're the executive. You execute our laws. And just to be clear, here's the Impoundment Control Act. Here are the circumstances under which you can do this. They're very carved out. Otherwise, you just have to spend the money. Russ Vogt, the Republicans believe that the Impoundment Control Act is unconstitutional and they want a court fight. But in the meantime, Elon Musk is saying, okay, well, if we're going to stop payments and these bureaucrats aren't going to let us because it's illegal, we just need to take the keys from them and start pressing the buttons ourselves.
And let it play out in court. Yeah.
Somewhat let it play out in court, but also prevent it from getting to court in some cases if there's no visibility into who blocked the payment, who the payment was intended for. So a scenario that people have laid out, so let's say a member of Congress says, all right, I want in my district this homeless shelter to be built and to get $50 million from the federal government. And then I'll vote for your spending package. That passes into law, the president signs it, it's right there in the law. Treasury Department then says, okay, here's the project that they're talking about, here's the EIN of this organization. We checked out, they're legit, all this tracks, $50 million payment goes out, they send it to this system, which is supposed to be separate from politics. Like half of it's in West Virginia, half of it's in Maryland. Like some of it is in DC, but most of it is out in West Virginia and Maryland. And then they're like, okay, EIN, blah, 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 here it is, payment goes. What Musk's team is trying to do is go in there and say, actually, I don't think we want to fund that homeless shelter, and just stop it. So you either then get a court challenge when the homeless shelter realizes it didn't get its money, or they're like, we just never got paid, and they don't know why. And when you ask why, then there might not be an answer, because it might be like, well, we don't know. It's been approved.
Right.
It'll get there eventually. And so the court might be like, well, come back to us when you've got some evidence that you're not going to get this.
It'll definitely make it to court, though, in the first place.
Eventually, something's going to get to court. Something has to.
Absolutely. And I think probably sooner rather than later. Let's put the next element up on the screen, because it gets to the point that you were making, Ryan, about who is in charge here. This is a meme that says, who are these little boys and why are they in charge of our money? And it's running down the guys who are behind all of this, and they are young, but clearly, to Ryan's point, brilliant. It says the U.S. Treasury is usually run by grown-ups. Mamas, come get your babies out of our government. Ryan, I get that impulse. I think there have been people of similar age groups that have been behind some of the most important and actually well-respected political movements.
Napoleon.
In throughout history. A lot of the founding fathers were actually kind of young. Not all of them, of course. Some were
Jefferson
very,
was,
very
26
old.
when he wrote the Declaration of
Some
Independence?
were young. But to that point, you also flagged this next element. We could put this Andrew Tate post up. This is something that one of them retweeted from Andrew Tate, where he's...
Oh, I missed this. I didn't flag this. Somebody else did. This is interesting.
Okay, so yeah, in majority Filipino areas of the UK, it must look and feel British. This is, by the way, from January of 2025. In majority Indian areas of the UK, it must look and feel British. He's basically saying, immigrate, expect to adapt to British culture, no matter how small the norm. We like quiet Sunday mornings. Problem, leave. And what's interesting about that, Ryan, is...
So Gavin Clegger is one of these kids,
yeah,
basically.
So
he retweeted this, yeah.
What's interesting about that, I think, is, Ryan, even just openly retweeting Andrew Tate, totally common among young men, by the way, horrifying to people in Washington, not uncommon among young men who are trending further and further right. But yeah, now one of these young men is holding the keys to a significant portion of government and potentially outside the boundaries of the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, yeah. This is so we just talked about the framers, some of the framers being very young when they built the Constitution. I've spent my entire life being lectured by the right about how brilliant the design of our Constitution is and our checks and balances. And to now be told, all right, get the hall monitors out of here. Musk has good ideas and smart kids, so he's just going to clean this mess up, and this is what I voted for, is kind of preposterously disorienting. It's like either you believe in representative democracy or you don't, and Musk very obviously does not. He very much seems to be in one of those Curtis Yarvin camps. I know Curtis Yarvin's all over the map, but in general, there's this techno-feudalist idea that we know better.
It should be run as, this is directly from Curtis Yarvin, who was here for inaugural festivities, by the way, who believes in, I think techno-feudalism is a good word. I think he would say almost like a corporate monarchy, that the United States should be controlled by a single monarch and run like a corporation, CEO style. And it's something that gets kicked around a lot in online right circles, the same places that Elon Musk seems to dwell when he's spending time on the internet. So it's not impossible that there's a actual sort of ideological strain being pulled from that into Musk's mind and the mind of some of these kids that seem to be pretty, I shouldn't even call them kids, I mean, they're adults, but they're young and they haven't been in DC long at all. One funny thing I saw being passed around Capitol Hill circles is people are upset about the 25-year-olds running the government, wait until they find out about Capitol Hill, which is pretty funny because 25-year-olds have been running the government for a while, unfortunately.
Although one of the versions that I saw of that going around was they were saying wait till they find out about the rest of the government, and that's actually not accurate. It is 100% true that if you go around Capitol Hill, people are 25 and under, and hello to everybody on Capitol Hill. We have I don't know how often you go to the House office buildings anymore. I practically have to stay out of them. There's so many breaking points viewers because everybody there is 25 and under. But in the actual government, the departments, education, treasury, et cetera, those career people, some of them are very young, but they stick around for 20, 30 years, which is what's so frustrating to Musk.
Yeah, to the right,
because only 20,000 people have taken this fake buyout offer so far out of the millions that they sent it out to.
Right. Okay, well, let's take this next. This is P6. There are sleep pods going around. They're not, I think they're poorly described as pods because I looked into it and essentially what it is a wrap for a mattress. That does seem pretty technologically impressive. It's sort of like a sheet you put over your mattress that can monitor it can track your sleep basically, and it can.
But there's no mattress?
You have to put it over a mattress.
So where's the mattress? Don't they need a mattress too?
Yeah,
use
presumably
couch- they can put
they
it on
have
the couch?
mattresses in there, which is some of the reporting is that yes, they have been bringing basically like bedroom stuff into some of these buildings so that they can sleep and do this like Silicon Valley style, this hostile takeover Silicon Valley style, which I actually think is interesting, Ryan, because, well, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but from the perspective of like movement conservatives, they wanted a lot of this to be like done by conservative movement lawyers. Like, first of all, this was always a fantasy that you would actually have this generational opportunity to start slashing and burning and to do it without regard or even with contempt for the sacred norms that the sort of political establishment reveres. Like, it's a literal fantasy of the conservative movement, just like overturning Roe. Like, nobody ever thought they would actually have the opportunity to do that, or most people didn't really think they would have the opportunity to do that. Now that Donald Trump has it, it's in the hands of an industry that just a couple of years ago conservatives were at war with. But because of the vibe shift, you're able to pluck the MAGA people out of Silicon Valley world, import them into DC, and they have the support of the conservative movement, at least for now. So it's like this hostile takeover that was always planned to be ideologues from the conservative movement now being done by an industry or members of an industry, denizens of an industry that was decried by the conservative movement, that was at war with the conservative movement. So it's really an odd tension.
And it's because it's really what it is a dual personality movement. It's whatever Musk says is good, and whatever Trump says is good. And when the twain don't meet, we'll find out, who can win. But as of now, Musk seems to be taking the lead. Like over the weekend, he's like, I put USAID in the wood chipper, and then on Monday, Trump's like, yeah, it's okay, you can do that. So it's like Musk is very much asking, moving first, and then, he's asking for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah.
It's what seems to be clear. And then, how much does Trump need him, care about him, like fear him because of his money, be amused by him? I don't know. We're going to find out. What happens if they do break the system, Treasury system, and the payments start not going out? What happens if? Now, I don't think we're going to have a debt ceiling situation 6 months from now, because I think Trump will just ignore it. He'll say there is no such thing as a debt ceiling. Like, if he's not inclined to follow laws, it seems. So,
yeah.
And at that point, Bassin will be like, okay, I agree. Like, which, when Obama was president, I argued that the 14th Amendment means that there is actually no debt ceiling, because the 14th Amendment says very specifically that the debts of the federal government shall not be questioned. So
it's similar. No, I mean, seriously, some of these are legitimate constitutional questions that need to be worked out in the courts. Like, if Russ Vought were here and he was arguing with us over impoundment, he would make a case that is substantial, and we may disagree with it. I'm honestly fairly persuaded by it, but either way, it's raises a legitimate constitutional question about separation of powers and how we have, just by norms, allowed the government to sort of be in a state of inertia in the executive branch, because a lot of this stuff just didn't get challenged. And Congress increasingly relies on the executive branch to go through its power. But speaking of separation of powers, the U.S. attorney, this is B7, initially, this is a weird subplot that we can get into maybe more next week, but said that our initial review of the evidence presented to us indicates that certain individuals and or groups have committed acts that appear to violate the law in targeting DOGE employees. So he's kind of agreeing with Musk there. But then at the same time, it's just unclear of where this is really going. This is the U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia region, because there were conflicting information about what he's actually talking about there.
It could be straight up death threats, and I've seen like I think on Blue Sky, there was some circulating that looked like pretty patent, like death threats. And those are, you can't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
obviously.
And if there's a clear directed death threat, the FBI should get involved.
Yeah.
Musk kind of took that and tried to suggest that, any kind of aggressive criticism of the Doge boys is going to be illegal. We'll see.
So finally, Kim Kelly reported that sources have told her that DOGE is going after the Department of Labor next. This is the final element for this block. And labor workers have been ordered to give DOGE access to anything they want or risk termination. Similar to what we heard about Treasury and USAID, we're supposed to stop everything we're doing and do whatever the DOGE kids ask. It feels dirty and illegal, that source told Kelly. So this is developing literally by the hour. So we'll obviously keep following it. Crystal and Steiger will be back here following it more tomorrow because we'll likely have more information on what's going on over at Labor.
And Kelly says there's a rally scheduled for 3 p.m. outside the Department of Labor, which is right near where we are. It's 200 Constitution Avenue, so it's 3 p.m. today, saying, keep the Doge kids out of the Department of Labor, because they're having a kickoff meeting apparently at 4 p.m. between the Department of Labor officials and the Doge folks.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.